This channel supports Extra Life in its efforts to raise money for the Children's Miracle Network. For more information about how to donate and join in their efforts, go to the link displayed here. Extra Life. Play games, heal kids. What up, everybody? This is your boy Black Magus, and another Black Magus social debate video. With things rapidly heading towards the new administration, and of course, me getting ready to gear up on the podcast thing. Keep a lookout, guys. Wise Guy Gaming, Sports, and Entertainment is about to go nuts because there's going to be so much stuff to talk about as far as all three of those subjects. You know, the His Point, Her View podcast is going to be off the chain. Got some new podcast announcements. If you go over there and check them out, we're developing new ideas and things like that we're putting together and looking to collaborate with people. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be very, very, very fun. I highly recommend you go and check out Wise Guy Gaming, Sports, and Entertainment. That's the other YouTube channel that I run. So please feel free, check out the content, and if you like, support. Now that I'm done with self-promotion, let's get into the topic. So Golden Globes just happened, and Meryl Streep made a huge splash with her speech where she pretty much got into Donald Trump and, tweaked him a little bit because, of course, as usual, when he gets in his feelings, he has to tweet and he has to start throwing out insults and all that. His comeback was she's a horrible, overrated actress, blah, 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 blah. That's why Hillary people all are like so upset, and this is what they do when they lose. Basically, he had no real comeback. That's the thing I have a really big problem with too. Well, one of the big problems I have with him being on Twitter is that he's not necessarily responding in a legitimate manner. He's basically throwing a hissy fit, which makes him look worse. And you would think, as president of the United States, I need to at least give a better response, even if it's going to be throwing shade. I seriously need you to respond a little more eloquently than you do. But alas, maybe he will learn. Maybe he will heed the warning of former intelligence agency leaders and things like that, and just chill on the whole Twitter thing and worry about concentrating on the job at hand, the task at hand, and not being baited into responding to people who dislike you. I mean, again, I said it before, we'll continue to say it. Not everybody's going to like you as president, so you better get used to it. Grow a thick skin, grow the fuck up, and get over yourself and just do your job. That's what we want our president to do, is to do his job. You know, win, lose, or draw, as long as you are on the job, you know, we can only criticize you. We can't say that you're not committed to what you're doing. We can criticize you for the things we don't like, but we cannot say that you're not at least trying to do your job. You know what I mean? But anyway, that's a whole nother rant right there. Thing with I want to discuss is there's a part of Meryl Streep's speech that stuck out to a lot of people, and it's got a lot of flack from people like Dana White, who, again, need better responses. People, Dana White, he responded with anger and pettiness, which doesn't help his situation. And I believe it was the president of Bellator responded to in an elegant way, and I will get to that later. But basically, during her speech, she talked about how there's a lot of foreigners and things that work in the filming industry, and that for Trump to basically try to lock them away and get rid of, minorities and things like that, foreigners, I should say, not minorities. She didn't address minorities, but you get rid of them would then help make the arts worse, and will leave people basically. What was it exactly that she said? I can't remember exactly what she said, but she just basically referenced the fact that you ruin the film industry by getting rid of foreigners, and you'll be stuck with MMA and um. Did she say football? She basically said two sports. And it was basically saying that hey, um, those aren't arts. You'll ruin arts, and all you'll be left with is basically sports. It was kind of insulting to people who she probably wasn't trying to insult. Um, and it just reminded me of the whole Hillary Clinton deplorable thing. Like, while we all found that funny and we laughed and we made the joke, I even made a joke once about somebody who there was a picture of this lady who had a "You Can Grab My Pussy" T-shirt on, and I made like, gee, now she's very deplorable to a friend of mine, and they were like, Michael, don't do that, and they're right, don't, because at the end of the day, that deplorable um, comment is just one piece of the puzzle as to possibly why Hillary Clinton lost, because she insulted a lot of people. Um, by calling them deplorable for wanting to support Trump, she's basically told them that you're disgusting human beings. Now, you can make it a case that there probably are some people who are disgusting. In particular, you think about people like the KKK and things like that, who are the neo-Nazi groups who push an agenda of um, racism and hatred. But for the most part, a lot of those people who were supporting Trump, you never know. They could be misinformed. They could just be people who really, really adhered to the things that he said. That doesn't make them disgusting or quote unquote deplorable people. So that kind of stung to a lot of them. And I think I've said this before, and I think a lot of people have said it as well. I think she kind of rallied um, a group of people to side against her. You know, even some people who may have been in the middle, who may have been like, okay, I think I may vote for you, but now you just told me because I I would think to support this guy that I'm disgusting. Okay, fuck you. There's people will react like that. When you hurt somebody's feelings, when you insult them, they can react in that way. And I think a lot of people reacted that way against Hillary, and that hurt her. It's just like with the Meryl Streep thing now, of course, for someone who's had such a storied career, who's accomplished so much, if the reaction is we're not going to watch your movies, I don't think she really cares much, because there's nothing you can do to take away what she's accomplished already. She's been there. It's not like she was trying to, but she's an up and coming artist who's trying to get noticed, and now she's just tanked her career. No, she's been to the top of the industry, and that's what she was there for during her speech, was being acknowledged for being um, one of the best actresses ever. So, you know, and no skin off her nose, but it still stands to reason that she shouldn't have said that. Because again, not everybody that you're insulting necessarily feel the way that you think they feel. Like, again, I get it. Trump's not a likable person. Um, People are very, very afraid of what he will do in office, and the things that he said, the things that she reflected on as far as foreigners and things like that, about building the walls and deporting Muslims and things like that. Those are very, very serious and frightening, hateful things to think of. But the whole thing about MMA and football and sports, um, dismissing those as not being artful, it's like, okay, can I agree that it's not quote unquote artful? Sure. But what you're also saying is that people who are into those things um, clearly aren't into anything worth watching, because you basically are trying to say that if the movie industry gets torn apart and the art of filmmaking suffers, well, then we just all have to resign ourselves and have no choice but to deal with, this thing right here, UFC, or football. She basically was doing the whole, we're not going to be into things of a higher caliber of intelligence. We're lowbrowing. She basically um, kind of poked at people, saying that you're just going to have lowbrow stuff, which sports isn't. It's a form of entertainment, which I also found very funny, that that's the avenue um, of attack that she chose, because at the end of the day, her art is entertainment as well, just like sports is a form of entertainment, and people get to pick and choose what type of entertainment they want. Now, if you don't care for movies, but you watch MMA or football or basketball, um, I don't know why that's a knock. And it's funny because I can't express it the way that Trevor Noah did. He expressed it very well, and if I remember, I'll put the link in the description. But like he said, it's kind of tone deaf, because you're dismissing people who are into those things, and pigeonholing them in a certain group. I'm not sure what group she was intended to. Like, is she trying to say that if you're a sports fanatic, you clearly must be somebody who um, support Trump or something? Was that your intention? It was a very weird point that she pushed, and again, it's insulting for no reason, because hey, take somebody like me. I like watching movies, television, um, sports, documentaries. I read, I write, I do vlogs, I do podcasts. I follow political news. I feel like I'm a very well-rounded person who is into a lot of things, video games, all that. Um, what's wrong with me liking sports? Like, I don't understand where that came from. It's just like it's the type of statement that fuels the fire of the thing that she despises the most. Because again, it fueled the fire against Hillary. You have to be careful of how you phrase things. Now, if she doesn't like sports, she doesn't like MMA, she thinks they're barbaric, that's fine. But part of the problem that we have now with our political state is that people are so pressed to push their ideology onto other people that they're not thinking clearly and not thinking about the big picture. I said it on Twitter. Basically, it's like, our geology is cool, but not when you're a slave to it. Open your mind up and realize that there are different ways of thinking or approaching things. Now, you may find some of that stuff, quote unquote, deplorable, disgusting, what have you. Um, and some of that stuff, hey, by rights is, again, the racism, sexism, all of that stuff, that's not cool. And I can't defend that line of thinking. That being said, conservatism is not a line of thinking that necessarily should be admonished, because there are things about conservatism, and I've said this before too, that could make sense, just like liberalism. People who are going on this rail against liberals don't know why. There's nothing wrong with liberalism. Um, I think the problem is that we have too many people who are so willing to line up on either side of the fence, and they're too stubborn to acknowledge that there may be some benefits to the other side, or the other side may have a point, that we've spiraled into this position where when you look at things like her speech, it's so easy to divide each other, and we are so quick to want to divide each other when you don't necessarily have to. Um, like, yes, do I think Donald Trump is the worst choice for president? Hands down, 100%. He should not have won. But that doesn't mean I should hate all Republicans or all conservatives. Because there's a lot of them who think the same thing too. But if you're gonna go after them and insult them, you're going to make people defensive. And when people are defensive, they will do things that they probably would never normally do, or say things they probably would normally do. But you've offended them, you've hurt their feelings, so they feel the need to protect them. And this is where the part of the back and forth just continues to go, back and forth, back and forth. The pettiness in our political state is just ridiculous. Like, yeah, do I like Paul Ryan? No, fuck him. Fuck McConnell. But that doesn't mean I hate the entire GOP. I just hate the people who I think are manipulating the system to do bad things. You know what I mean? It's just like, in turn, how could you not acknowledge that Obama is actually a pretty decent person and that he was trying to be bipartisan? Not everything he put forth made sense. It was the best. But he was trying to do things for the greater good, and that should be acknowledged. But we see a lot of people go, "Oh my God, he's just so awful because he's a liberal," and liberals like, that's not what you should do. You should be able to dislike certain things without trying to put everything in a whole, like, category and dismiss it all, because it doesn't work that way. It really doesn't. Open your minds, people, and stop being petty. I think Meryl Streep was very, very petty with that. Um, I understand her distaste for Trump, but within her distaste, she kind of stereotyped um, certain people who are into certain things, and it's not that way. Again, I'm not that type of person, and I like those things that she don't feel is art. So why are you coming at me? You know what I mean? It, it's just weird. It's just weird, and I hope that we can get to a point in society and politically where, hey, we can disagree, we can have um, dislike things, but do it in a much more, how can I say this? Uh just do it in a much more respectful manner, I guess. And that's the thing. She was going fine until she felt like she needed to disrespect a certain group of people. When the speech wasn't about them necessarily, it was about him, and she inadvertently offended people who don't fall in that group that she was intending on offending. So be careful with what you say and how you frame things. But hey, like I said, it's not like she's gonna live to regret it, because she's had her career. It's like whatever to her. I'm curious to see if she does have a response to people who criticize that point, because before I go, just to speak on some of the criticism, Dana White, like I said, came out, but he was kind of pissy. He basically did the Trump thing, and he threw shots at her because it got under his skin a little too much. Like, again, with me, I didn't think that was cool for her to say, but it didn't get under my skin like that. And I'm more like the president of Bellator, who was like, look, I don't agree with what she said, because for us, this is something that is a passion. And, being into martial arts, there is an artistry to it, to some of us. And he would love for her to actually come and be a part of an event, or maybe come and check out how they do things at Bellator, so she can understand that, hey, you know, it's not as bad as you think it is, and you shouldn't dismiss us. That's classy. Or again, like Trevor Noah said, yeah, she was being tone deaf, and it's not cool to say that. And I loved how he pointed out the fact that you also have to remember, for an industry that talks about how artful it is and how inclusive it is in your speech, you have to remember there are a lot of things that have been done in Hollywood that could be pointed out as being negative, such as when most Muslims in movies are always terrorists, or how you don't see a lot of African American stories beyond slavery, or hood stuff and things like that. So yeah, some people just don't throw stones, and of course, not be in a glass house, but more importantly, try to be more considerate of the fact that just because you're not into it doesn't mean that you need to insult people. It's what for being into certain things too. I think that's where she missed the mark right there on her speech. Otherwise, I had no problem with it. It was what it was. But anyway, that's my long ass rant on this. Do expect to see a bunch of podcasts where we discuss this on Wise Guy Game Sports and Entertainment, in particular on his point her view, as well as on the Wise Guy Digest, which is kind of a bi-weekly thing I do solo, where I discuss major topics of the world. But do expect those two podcasts to cover it in even more depth. So check out Wise Guy Game Sports and Entertainment if you can, please. Anyway, as always, people, feel free to hit me up. Let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you later. This your boy Blak Magus, and I'm out. Deuces.